Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today, we have the new Tier 9 Future Tech Line Italian Heavy Cruiser, the Andalucía, in port to review for you guys today. With the release of Update 12.6, these ships went into early access. I have quite the interest in these guys, as they are quite the heavy cruisers, at least on paper. Of course, we'll see how that translates to in-game here in a minute. And I decided to take a whirl at the random bundles, and thanks to the funds from the Patreons, we were able to acquire the Andalucía. Speaking of Patreons, I'm not a CC nor supported by Wargaming in any way, shape, or form. So the generous donations from the Patreons make this review and pretty much all ship reviews possible. So big shout out to those guys whose names should be appearing up on screen here. If you want to support the channel, Patreon's the best place to do so, besides of course just watching the videos, streams, and such. So the Andalucía, the Spanish cruisers, they are here, they are out, they are something. As you can see, the Andalucía does have the German secondaries on, the 128, so it's the secondary guns that the German battleship players want to have on their German battleships, because those guys, if they have the German HE pins, can pin 32 millimeters of armor. We will be taking a look at them as well. So we're going to go ahead, go over the Andalucía today, talk about her stats and such here in port, and then we are going to take her into battle. So let's go ahead and take a look at her. So, of course, she's a tech line ship, so doesn't come with any bonuses. Although I did get the bonus in the bundles right before I got her. That's typically how that works. If you get the bonus for the ship and the random bundles, the next package is probably going to be the ship. So normally she wouldn't have a bonus package, but because of that, I do have one on her. But yeah, this is going to be a tech line ship. It's a special ship right now because it's in early access, but that's, of course, going to change when she comes out in full. For her camo, I think this is the most hilarious thing about these ships. Okay, so this is a ship without the camo. This is the ship with the camo. That's right. You go from medium gray to dark gray. Medium gray, dark gray. Medium gray, dark gray. Medium gray, dark gray. And the planes get some yellow stripes on them. 200 dubs, please, sir, for a dark gray. It doesn't even hide that much rust. Like, these rust lines are still there and all that jazz. Like, these bits here, I don't know if that will just even show up on YouTube, do go away, but that is hilarious. So, yeah, I'm fine with medium gray. Oh, that's great. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at her armor. So, 25mm bow. She does have a 50mm strip there. An icebreaker bow, if you will. Then 25 below that. Uppers 27. 40mm torpedo protection. That's going to be a big middle finger to a lot of light cruisers, so that's nice. Torpedo protection down there is 27. What about the stern? Almost a complete wraparound icebreaker stern as well. 50mm, 25mm as well on the stern. Stern decks 27. Mid decks 27. Ooh, that's not great. And then bows 25. Okay, what about our citadel? Let's take a look at that, shall we? So the citadel is exposed. Yeah, so there's no drop down armor or anything like that. Citadel is high and dry, but you do have the torpedo protection to get through. Look at this here. You have a 40mm plating, then you have 110mm plating, and then you have the citadel. That's interesting, and it's spaced. I wonder if this is going to be more like the French cruiser void armor, or if this is just going to give battleship shells every single excuse they need to arm on your ship. This is, I'm curious about this. Alright, so this is going to be most interesting once we get into game with it. So, Citadel's either very well protected, or you're going to get nuked. That's the vibe I'm getting from that so far. Alright, so for the guns, you have 9 234mm guns with a 14-second base reload time, 180 turn time with 25.7 seconds, maximum dispersion of 148 meters, and a maximum range of a 16.7 kilometers. We're going to say 167 kilometers. That would be quite far. And then the HE, maximum damage of 3,350, a 16% fire chance, 39 millimeters of HE pin, Those come out the tubes at 841 meters a second. The AP, 5,750 maximum AP damage, and those come out the tubes at 841 meters a second. Secondaries do not get the German HE pins, sad. So they only pin 21 millimeters of armor. We could have had something great there. Still have a 5% fire chance with a 4-second reload time. So they might be okay fire starters once you get in close with a 7-kilometer base range. She does get torpedoes. You get 2x4 533s mounted on the deck with a range of 8 kilometers. Maximum damage is 16,633. So, some nice ace up your sleeve torpedoes for when you get into those sticky situations. And what's their speed? 62 knots. Yeah, I mean, you're going to be firing these things from like point blank range anyway, so that's not bad at all. That's pretty good. She does get depth charges. Focke-Wulfs. Very interesting. AA's up to 75. You get 16x2 20mm guns. Then you get 6x2 37mm guns. 6x4 37mm guns. Oh, those look neat. And then, of course, the secondaries are also dual purpose. Probably what they're contributing more to in terms of AA than secondary firepower. 36 knots. 36 knots maximum speed. That's pretty solid. That's before the speed flag too. 800-meter turning circle radius and an 11.3-second rudder shift time. Consumed to 14.5 kilometers base. And then for her box O gimmicks, boy does she got some. So, of course, this line, once you get up to the higher tiers, you do get the burst fire alternative firing mode. You get a 1.5-second reload time for 2 salvos. So you get some very, very, very quick salvos right there. And I believe they used to improve like the pins and the damage and whatever, but they tossed that, and it's just a 1.6-second burst for 2 salvos with a 33-second reload time after that. So quite punishing. I'm not really sure how much I would actually use that. I guess we'll find out in the gameplay section, but that is, of course, the main thing about this line. The Canaries are supposed to have that as well, but they tossed that on her. So we'll see how it works out here. So you get a choice of fighter or spotter, hydro or DFAA. You get a heal that regens 241 HP per second for 28 seconds and cools down in 80 seconds. Alright guys, that is the Andalucia's gimmicks and such. We're going to go ahead through a commander build on her. I'll meet you guys right back here for that. Alright guys, so for the commander build, I moved my Bazan commander off, who was currently on, well, he was the commander for the Canaries. Moved him over here, and this is what I'm running on him for now. He was a 18-point commander, or 17-point commander. I'd earned 4 more points on him. So the build's a little weird, but I think it'll work for what I'm going for. So I went with preventive maintenance. Well, I'm sorry, last stand. This will give us the ability to use our engine steering gears at a reduced efficiency if they do get knocked out. It's very important in a cruiser. I do have the safety circle on one, also known as priority target. This lets us know how many ships are aiming at us. Some very useful information if you're in a cruiser. And then, of course, for the 3-point skills, you can never have too many of these, but we went with, of course, Adrenaline Rush, because if we are going to take damage, it's nice to get that boost to our reload time there. And then heavy AP shells, because this is literally free damage, 5% more damage for your AP shells if you have a caliber of 190mm and above. Andalucía obviously does have that, so 5% more AP damage per shell, so very nice there. Then Superintendent, because of course we want that another charge of that heal, Hydro, and the Spotter. Hydro's of course very important because submarines, heal, it's the heal. And then Spotter, of course, to get our range out when we need it. And then we went with Survivability Expert to give us another 450 HP per tier. So that, more health is more health. And then we went with Concealment Expert for our 4-point skill to get our detection range down even further. And then I had 2 points left over. And I mean, like, the torpedoes, again, it's not a torpedo boat. You have an 8-kilometer range. It's mostly going to be close range stuff. Consumable enhancements, maybe if you want a longer hydro, okay. And then Eye in the Sky, maybe. We'll see how it goes. Demolition Expert, I don't think this is exactly an HE spammer. So, I figured I could use those 2 2-point skills better as these 1-point skills. So grease the gears to kind of counteract the effect of the module that we're taking. I think that's a pretty big plus. And then, of course, gun feeders. So when we do need to swap between HE and AP, we get a 40% switching. 40% reduction to our switching time rather than the full duration. So I figured that would be a better pick. It may not be, and we'll find out when we get to the gameplay portion. But for the modules, if you were wondering, I basically built into the main battery, focusing on reload. So main armaments mod 1 to reduce the chance of our main battery guns getting knocked out by 20%, and then the survivability being reduced by 50%, and the repair time being reduced by another 20%. Then went with Damage Con mod 1 because fires suck, and this is a large cruiser, it's battleship burn time. So I'm pretty sure that, I'm fairly certain. Let me just double check here. So before I tell you guys wrong, yes, tier 9 plus does not say. I am like 90% sure it gets a battleship burn time. We'll find out, but with these big cruisers, they normally do. So if not, we could of course respec, but I'm fairly certain it does. Anyway, so aiming systems mod 1 because this gives us a straight up boost to our accuracy by 7%, and that's very nice. Then Damage Con mod 2 to reduce the fire and flooding recovery time by 15%, because again, fires suck and floods suck as well. Consumables System mod 1 to give us another 10% boost to our detection range. And then Main Battery mod 3 to give us a 12% boost to our reload time. And we're of course using the B-hull and the second gunfire control system upgrade. Alright, so now for the Andalucía, we now have 52,350 hit points, which is pretty nice. Artillery, we now have a 12.3 second reload on 234mm guns, which is pretty nice. And the rotation time is 25.7 seconds, which is still very nice. And the AP is now doing 6,038 maximum damage. Maneuverability with the speed flag is 37.8 knots, which is very lovely. So it's now down to 11.7 kilometers, which for a big cruiser like this is pretty good. Pretty good. Alright, we're going to go ahead, take the Andalucía into battle. Let me meet you guys there with a voiceover first impression review of the Andalucía. Alright guys, voiceover Sealord here. And first off, the Andalucía does have the cruiser burn time, which is very nice. I was expecting her to have the battleship burn time because these are slightly larger than your average heavy cruisers, but thankfully Wargaming did bestow upon them the cruiser burn time, not the battleship burn time like they like to give anything that's slightly large in the cruiser slot now. So that is very good. Now, playing her today, I did play her the day of the patch. Teams were a bit rough, a lot of one-sided matches, a lot of matches ending in, God, we had literally one game where we were down to one enemy ship right when the clock hit 17 minutes left. So, in 3 minutes, everyone on the other side was dead except for one cruiser. Yeah. It was something, I tell you. So, the matches weren't lasting very long. They were very much higher tier games, exceptionally passive teams, long range, snipe fest, and the like. So, the Spanish cruisers are most definitely cruisers that are tooled for more close range engagements. Despite all that, the Andalucía was able to hang in there and basically get enough done to do okay. I mean, most of the matches I was doing like 60,000 damage simply because the matches were over before the 10-minute slot. And by that I mean, like, by the 5-minute mark, enemy team, the DDs are done, everyone's running away, and of course it's, you're not exactly a snipey cruiser, you gotta run after the enemy team and chase them down. By the time you get there, you only have about 5 minutes left to really do any damage, and then by the time you get there, start to fire at them, they get wiped off the face of the map. So, despite that though, I was coming like number 3, number 4, pretty consistently in the Andalucía in the matches that I played with her. Unfortunately, I didn't have any matches where we really got to see the close rangeness of the ship get shown off. because, again, it's tier 9, it's a bit of a slugfest, and keep in mind, too, this is the tier that gets slotted against super ships. So, yeah, pretty rough morning. But, again, the Andalucía was able to hang in there. Something that I noticed that is the thing that's going to really hold this cruiser, and if this is carried over to the Castilla, back is the vertical dispersion. Now, normally in most cruisers will have pretty consistent dispersion. I don't know what's going on with the Spanish cruiser dispersion pattern or whatever, but it's about the most infuriating thing next to the Japanese battleship dispersion pattern. The vertical dispersion's all over the place. The horizontal dispersion is fairly consistent. It gets out there every now and then, but the vertical dispersion, sometimes you have, amazing vertical dispersion where it feels like the shells barely shift around at all. Other sides, you're landing half of your shells in front of the ship and the other half of your shells behind the enemy ship, just like a battleship. And I was sitting there going, what the heck is this nonsense? Normally cruisers, especially cruisers with a long reload time, like 11 seconds with the module, was it 13, 14 seconds without the module on the Andalucía here, typically have pretty consistent dispersion. Not with this ship. Now, even if it was like consistently bad, which we've talked about before with like the Massachusetts and the German battleships, you can still get used to the pattern and make that work. Especially on a cruiser with a 14 second, 11 second with the module reload time, you can make it work. But when it's inconsistent, it's hard to figure out what the shells are going to do. Keep in mind too that the Spanish cruisers are AP focused. They have improved AP pins, so you want to use AP when you can, which is pretty much all the time. Basically, if you are not facing a angled cruiser or angled ship that you can't, bind into with your AP, or a bow-on battleship, you want to use AP. DDs, you still want to use AP. It's not quite like the German cruisers where you want to keep AP loaded all the time, because the HE Alpha is not completely anemic like the Germans, so you still want to keep that loaded for DDs, but basically, as much as you can, if you can bind into it, you want to keep the AP loaded. You primarily want to use AP. Only use HE when you have situations where you can, if the ships are super angled or whatever. Now, that leads into more frustration because, again, you do have very nice AP on these Spanish cruisers. But again, with that dispersion at range, you can't really get the AP to bite like you want it to. Sometimes it does, and when it does, it's great. It's really nice. But the rest of the time, it's just so frustrating. Watching the shells go either fall short or fall long of where you intended for them to land. It's like, man, I'm playing a cruiser, not a battleship. But given, again, everything that the ship has, the torpedoes, the nice AP, the armor is... I found that with the armor pattern they went with, it did what I thought it was going to do. Against cruisers and smaller caliber battleships, yeah, you can get away with a little bit more, but you run into those bigger caliber battleships that they just go right through that, and then you've given them enough armor for them to bite into your ship, and now your ship's exploded. So, yeah, it's fun, but again, it's a cruiser. Again, I don't think anyone's expecting cruisers to be able to sit there and tank battleship shells, right? So, about par for the course at the end of the day. It's interesting that they tried something a little bit different with the spaced armor. Again, more akin to the French armor scheme, but it doesn't really work out like the French armor scheme does. So, yeah, again, with all that's got it going for it, I can see why they had to tone back the dispersion, but honestly, I'd give up the alternative firing mode just for some consistent shells where I can hit the ships that I want to hit with the dispersion. So, let's talk about that burst fire. You're never really going to use it unless you're in a drive-by with another cruiser and you want to delete them in one drive-by. That's about the only time you're going to want to use it. If there's something that you can think you can take out with those two salvos, go ahead and use it. Like a cruiser's on its last 10k HP, and there's broadside to you, yeah, go ahead and use it. Other than that, I wouldn't. I prefer the consistent RPM to just the quick burst there. So, but outside those two situations, a drive-by or finishing off a ship, I wouldn't use it. And again, I'd gladly give it up to get some more consistent shells at range, because you know what's not going to happen a whole lot at Tier 9? Drive-bys, because of the meta. You know what's going to happen a lot at Tier 9? Having to hit that guy out at 16, 17, 18 kilometers with a spotter plane, because of the meta. So I'd gladly trade that burst fire mode for more consistent shells. And if that was the case, I would rank this ship a lot higher. Right now, for me, this ship is sitting at around a 6. Just because of the aggravation of the shells. If the shells would consistently hit where they're supposed to go, this could easily be a 7, even an 8 for me. But right now, just given the nature of higher tier and such, it's a 6. It's above average. I like it. Don't get me wrong. It's not going to be the first cruiser that I hop in game and say, hey, I want to play the Andalucía today. But for Tier 9 cruisers, it's pretty solid, honestly. Tier 9, we have a lot of duds at Tier 9 when it comes to cruisers. And in general, Techline Tier 9s tend to be a bit of a rough spot for everybody. And as far as Techline Tier 9s go, it's pretty solid, honestly. I don't think it's going to be a miserable grind to get through, but it's okay. Of course, don't worry about spending money on this ship. It's going to be a completely free ship to research in 2 patches. And again, it's just slightly above average for me right now because of the nice AP and the high speed. The torpedoes are, of course, a nice trick to have up your sleeve when it comes to drive-bys, and so is the burst fire. But again, with higher tier meta, you're not really going to get to use that too much. The fire chance is a little low on it for the caliber of gun. The Johan de Witt's pretty close to it in caliber, and it has a 20% fire chance. The Johan has 240s, it's 234s. The only other 234 ship I can think of off the top of my head would be the Goliath. That's a tier 10. Of course, that's British HE2, so that has a 25% fire chance. This does have a 16. So for the caliber of gun, it's on the lower side of the fire chance, which is another frustrating thing to have to deal with at higher tier. Because, of course, facing super ships and things like that, they do have the armor to bounce your AP shells. So you have to default to your HE, since you do have a longer reload time, mediocre fire chance. It does become a bit of a slog. And, of course, the accuracy is still there, where, for some reason, just because of the horizontal dispersion, shells are going to land short or long, more so than they should in a cruiser, in my opinion. But yeah, if they buff it and they give it a nice straightening to its barrels and get the dispersion to be more consistent, I think this could easily be an 8. Easily, especially given it's a tier 9 ship. And again, like I mentioned, all that about tier 9 ships being pretty miserable. So guys, that's my 2 cents on the Andalucía. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, you should drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 50,000 subscribers thanks to you guys, and I can't thank you guys enough for that. Hope you guys have a great Thursday, a great rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.